Hello there. My name is Ian McKenna. I'm the head of marketing and the interim head of the business school at Liverpool Hope University. I do a lot of teaching around marketing communications, and that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to try and use Christmas TV adverts as the sort of theme to discover what goes on when a company looks to put a message together to try and communicate the meaning of their brand to us. So hopefully you saw the advert at the start, which was one of Coke's latest TV adverts, and but it plays on the theme holidays are coming. And basically what they've tried to do and what they've done very successfully over the last few years, they've got some nerve actually, but they've basically co-branded Christmas. And they're saying to all of us who listen, you know and I know that Christmas doesn't start until our lorries arrive in your city. The Coca-Cola van comes in with Father Christmas and we give out a load of free Coke. And at that point we say, well, okay, Christmas has started. And they're trying to get their message across that their brand is very much associated with Christmas. And sometimes we go for that, sometimes we don't. They're struggling this year because obviously with COVID, they haven't been able to do their grand tour with their lorries and their trucks. But nevertheless, they're finding different ways to say, when you think of Christmas, think of Coca-Cola. So what I'm going to try and do for the next sort of 25 minutes, half an hour, is take you through a classic communications process and look at how the likes of Coca-Cola try to brand themselves alongside Christmas, but also the likes of what John Lewis try to do every year, where they try to pull at our heartstrings. And you've probably seen over the last few weeks all of the big advertisers come to the party and on TV especially, and now on social media. And they're all sort of, it's a variation on a theme. They're all trying to create an emotional response at this, really precious time for many of us as we come to Christmas and we think about the people who we want to share our lives with, who we want to give to, and maybe some family members who we can't make contact with for various reasons, whether it's COVID or they live at the other side of the world. And they're all encouraging us to be nice to each other and be present with each other. By the way, what they're also trying to do, obviously, is get us to buy from them. So they're trying to create an emotional response in us, which is greater than the emotional response of their rivals. Anyway, let's have a look at some of the theory behind that, and we can see if it makes any sense. I'm just going to start off, though, by showing you how Christmas used to be advertised, or how brands used to advertise themselves at Christmas. You can see a whole range from back in the 1950s and 60s through to more of a modern age. But you can see that the theme that's there is, it doesn't matter what your product is or what your brand is, stick Father Christmas on it or Santa Claus on it and you've got a winner. So you can see Burger King in the top left-hand corner there, trying to flog us their products and thinking, well, if we put Father Christmas eating our products, everyone else will eat it. Next to it, I'm sure you, like me, associate Father Christmas or Santa Claus with typewriters. But again, in the 50s and 60s and going into the 70s, it didn't matter what you were trying to sell to the general public. Wrap it up with some tinsel and some holly, and especially if you can dress it in, if you can dress the scene with a Father Christmas, you're on a winner. What makes me smile, I've got 4 daughters at home and a wife, so you can imagine that this advert wouldn't go down very well in the modern day household. But Christmas morning, she'll be happier with the Hoover, especially if that Hoover's red with white trim and it looks a bit like Father Christmas's outfit with a nice holly bow on it. What more would a girl want? That would make any woman's day, wouldn't it? I doubt it would. But going back again 30, 40 years, this was the way that Christmas was commercialized, was actually marketed. We've moved a long way from that. As you see with the John Lewis adverts and some of the others like Tesco's, etc., very few references to any products. Well, maybe a bit more with Tesco and the supermarkets, but certainly with John Lewis and some of the other brands, very few references at all to the products they want to sell us. They're just trying to create a feeling, an emotional response, an atmosphere around Christmas, which makes us think good thoughts, try to be as generous in spirit, and hopefully they think in money, because we'll go into their store or go onto their website and buy the things for the people who we love. but it's a more subtle approach to Christmas, although the subtlety has become so subtle that it's actually probably now not subtle at all. And we sort of go, how are they going to try and make us cry this year then, John Lewis? It seems to be, it's a bit predictable, but nevertheless, you can see that it's moved on a great deal from some of these images here. I wanted to talk first and give you some theory. We are a university and we teach the theory and the models and we try to apply them. But I wanted to just look at what's going on when we engage with these adverts. First of all, there is a sender, and in this case, it's Coca-Cola if we look at the advert, or John Lewis if we're looking at their advert. And they try to think of who they're targeting, and they think about what the message is going to be. What's the key thing they want us to think, say, or do when we get that message? How are we going to respond? What are the key things we're going to take from their adverts or their marketing messages? So they come up with a message and then they encode it. They put it into the advert that we actually see. And then they choose how they're going to get that to us. They choose the media. So it could be via TV, it could be when you sit in the cinema and you see it before the film. It could be that it's on your social media wall. So they decide how they're going to get the message to us. And then they send it to us. And they've put this into a message that they hope we know what it means. It's a bit more subtle than here's a typewriter with Santa draped over it. You should buy a typewriter because it's Christmas. They give messages now in these adverts where they're hoping that they're going to hit the spot and that enough of us are going to think what they think. So they've encoded it in a message and they send it to us, and then we decode it by the way that we think about it. And it, you know, our memory and the way we've been brought up and our attitudes towards various products and brands, etc., mean that we decode the information we get, hopefully in the same way that the sender wants, but sometimes maybe not. And then the receiver, after we've decoded the information, we make a response. So we might rush out and buy the products that they're trying to sell us, or we might just feel a bit good. You know, we might feel very comforted by their advert. It might make us feel good. And we might go on our social media pages and tell our mates that we've just seen the new John Lewis advert or the Coca-Cola advert, that it's brilliant. It makes us feel all warm and fluffy inside. That's a good response from the company. If we went out and bought Coca-Cola and it's shed loads, that would be a good response as well. But we'll give lots of different kinds of responses. We might ignore it completely. We might react negatively against it, but hopefully we'll have some kind of response, and that gets fed back to the sender, and the sender then can adjust that message if they think it needs to be adjusted. The problem the advertisers have got, though, is that while this process is going on, there's a lot of noise, literally and figuratively speaking, there's lots of noise. So there are lots of other adverts out there fighting for our attention. On an average day when we're leading our life COVID-free, we'll probably get somewhere between 300 and 5,000 commercial messages. So when we get up and we look at our watch and we see the logo on our watch, or we pick our Apple iPhone up to read our text at the start of the day, or I go out and get into my Ford car and then I see the billboards that I pass, and then I see people at university with the logos on their chest of the, you know, or their Louis Vuitton bag or whatever it might be. We see brands and we see messages all the time. So the problem that the advertisers have got is that there's a lot of noise going on, and they need to get the message to us in a way that makes us sit up and think, or at least react. The way of thinking about this is if you're in Costa with a big group of your mates and you're sitting in two booths and you're having a conversation with a load of your mates in one booth, and all you can hear from the other booth is this hubbub, this noise. You can't make out what anyone's saying, but you know that there's a lot being talked about. And then suddenly one of the other group mentions your name, and you're like a meerkat, you shoot round and think, hey, someone talking about me, someone mentioned my name. Well, that's what we're looking for, because we get bombarded with all of this information, but there's certain things we do pay attention to. And the advertisers are looking at who we're marketing to. What are the things that they're going to stick up and pay attention to? They're going to get battered with loads of Christmas messages this Christmas. So how are they going to look at ours? Why would they pay attention to ours? So they have to find a way of cutting through the clutter, as we call it. Basically about making sense of the noise, and how can they, even though it's really noisy, get their message to you or to me. That's what an advertiser is up against. That's the process that any marketer and anyone actually sending a message goes through. They have to develop an effective piece of communication, and to do that, they'll go through 5 steps. First thing they have to do is identify who they're actually targeting. It's a bit easier at Christmas for some of these bigger brands because we're all in the buying mode at Christmas. But throughout the year, we have to think really hard and long about who exactly are we trying to target with our message. And then they need to work out, well, what is it we're trying to actually achieve with this message? So we need to work out what the communication objectives are. Are we wanting someone to be just more aware of us? Are we wanting someone to say, well, I like you? Are we wanting someone to say, actually prefer you to your main rival? Or are we asking someone to buy our product? And at different stages of that process, you or I will need a different kind of message. Once we've been through that process, we need to then design the message. And that's what I'm going to come back to and show you 1 or 2 other Christmas adverts, because there are basically 3 types of message or 3 kinds of appeal to an advert, generally speaking. And I want to talk to you about each of those 3 appeals and show you at least 1 Christmas advert which ties into each of those appeals. Once you've decided what your message is, you have to work out, is it going to be an advert? Is it going to be a piece of direct mail? Is it going to be a billboard? Is it going to be a poster? Is it going to be a pamphlet? Is it going to be a social media post? And then once you've done all of that, the last decision you've got to make is, who's going to give the message? Is it going to be Father Christmas himself? Is it going to be a celebrity? Is it going to be an actor who looks just like you or I or one of our family? Because each of those types of source will have a different impact depending on the message that they're actually trying to convey to us. So we're going to look at all of those kind of things in some detail in just a minute. So let's just look at the first one. If you can identify your target market, if you can be really specific about who you're actually aiming your message at, then you can answer a number of really important questions. You can answer what it is you're going to say. You can decide how you're going to say it, because if I'm talking to an old age pensioner or I'm talking to a young teenager, I'm probably going to use different language. I'm going to maybe talk more politely to an elderly person and maybe more with a bit more sort of street language, if I can call it that, if I'm not betraying my age, as it were. So how will it be said is important. When are you going to say it? So who are you targeting? If they're someone who's going to be in an office 9 to 5, then there's no point saying it during the hours of 9 to 5. They're going to be working. So say it through a TV advert at 7 o'clock in the evening when they're home and they've had their dinner. Where will it be said? So what are the kinds of places that the people who you're targeting go to? Where will you want to see your poster? Where will they engage with your advert? Will it be on their phone or will it be on their smart TV? And then who's going to say it? So will it be a celebrity? Will it be the company themselves, etc.? Then you've got to determine, as I said, what is it you're trying to achieve? And in marketing, there is a sort of a 6-stage framework around what we call buyer readiness. And at the start, before you get onto this sort of continuum, you might not know about my brand. And to make you know about my brand, I've got to make you aware. So one message might be about building awareness. Or you might be aware of a brand, but you don't know too much about it. So I might need to inform you with my message and give you more details so you know who I am. And then if you're aware of me and you know what I'm about, I need to make you like me. I need to give you reasons why you would actually like my product or my brand. And then once you've liked me, I need to get you to buy me more or to prefer me more than my rival. So I might be given a message which shows how I've got more benefits. Buying my product will give you more benefits than buying my rival's products. And then I need to convince you about your attitudes and your beliefs about my product so that you actually, when you think about my brand, you think about it in a positive way. And then eventually I'm hoping you're going to buy and you're going to keep coming back to buy. But depending on where my customer is, where my customer group who I'm targeting are on that continuum, means I need to give a slightly nuanced message. I either need to tell you who I am so you're aware of me, or I need to make you buy. If you already know who I am, I've got to give you reasons to come out and buy my product. So advertisers and marketers are thinking about this all the time, not just about what's the creative idea, but who am I targeting and what are my objectives with this? Am I trying to get you to buy my product instead of someone else's? Do I need to persuade you? Do I need to convince you? Or do I just need to make you aware of where you can buy it? And then designing the message. Often we use a sort of 4-stage model, which is called the AIDA model. And it's AIDA. The A stands for grab the person's attention. Make sure they're going to start listening to you. Once they've started to listen to you, make sure you hold their interest. I is the interest. So if you start listening to me and then after 2 seconds you go, oh yeah, I've heard that all before, not interested, then I've failed. I need to grab your attention and hold your interest. Then I need to make you want to actually engage with the product or the brand or the message. And that's about arousing desire. And then I need you to take action. I need to gain something from you. And hopefully that will be you buying, or at least you be feeling more favorable towards my product, or at least understanding now what it is that I do. So they use this AIDA model: get attention, hold the interest, arouse desire, and obtain action. And many organizations go through, use that model to go through the communication process when they're devising their Christmas adverts. And then we get to the point where once we've thought all that through, we can now put together our message content and what appeal it is that we're going to actually put out with our adverts. And adverts have 3 distinct kinds of appeal. And I'm going to talk to you about each of them in turn in a second. And then I'm going to show you an example of a Christmas advert which actually plays into each of those 3 appeals. Okay, so I could have a rational appeal, and a rational appeal is saying to the audience who are listening, it makes sense. So our turkeys this year are more succulent and cheaper than our rivals. So come and buy your turkeys from us this Christmas because it'll cost you less and it'll be a better deal. And you sit there and go, well, that makes sense. Don't have to pay as much money, but the turkey's bigger and it's juicier. Okay, I'll buy that. And that's a rational appeal. That's when we're saying, do this because it makes sense. It's in your own interest to do this. And so we'll have a TV advert which looks a bit like that. Or we could have a TV advert which has an emotional appeal. And this is the classic John Lewis TV advert, where we've seen it before. It's, at the end of it, you're sitting there thinking, oh, I better just pretend I've got something in my eye. I don't want to be seen to be crying in front of the family. The TV advert which always gets me from John Lewis was the man on the moon, the lonely man on the moon, and the little girl looking through her telescope and she sees him and they wave to each other. Anyone who's got elderly parents couldn't help but to be moved by that. And that was an emotional appeal where what John Lewis was trying to do was to stir up this positive emotion in us to say, oh, aren't we lucky that, we don't have someone in our family who we're disconnected from. Or they could equally stir up a negative thing, which we say, oh God, I haven't spoken to my dad in ages. I really do need to get him a Christmas present and go and see him. Either of those 2 things are good for John Lewis, because if we feel good about it, we're probably going to spend more money. If we feel bad about it, we might spend even more money. We often do when we feel guilty about something. But that was an emotional appeal. It tried to stir up the emotions in us. And then we have the moral appeal. And a moral appeal for a TV advert is to say, can you sit there and watch this and not act? When there's so much money in the world and yet there are kids starving in Ethiopia. Just £5. What's £5 to you? If you put £5 in our pocket, then in the charity's pocket, we can help somebody to have the kind of, not even the kind of lifestyle you've got, but at least they'll be able to move on a little bit with their life. It's a no-brainer, isn't it? Why wouldn't you want to give to something like that? So let's just have a quick reminder then of, I won't play all of the adverts, but let's just remind ourselves of a clip from each of these appeals. There's a rational appeal, an emotional appeal, and a moral appeal. And I'm going to try and run, if the technology allows me, I'm going to try and run one of each in a second.
be smoking 200 times. Yes, 10 packs of those better tasting Luckies, all done up for Christmas in a beautiful carton, created just for Lucky Strike by the famous designer, Mr. Raymond Loewy. It looks so bright and colorful under your Christmas tree, and it's such a welcome gift to anyone who enjoys a good smoke. Because you know, smoking enjoyment is all a matter of taste. And the fact of the matter is, Luckies taste better, cleaner, fresher, smoother. That's why you can't go wrong if you remember your friends with these colorful Christmas cartons of Lucky Strike. Be happy, go lucky for Christmas gifts this year.
Class, thank you so much for being here today as we continue in our class on homes and harmony. And this will be
Okay, sorry about that. So there's a little bit of sound interference there. But I showed you an old-fashioned rational Christmas appeal advert because first of all, it makes me smile that you could even think about trying to think that 200 cigarettes was the best Christmas present that you could ever have or give. But it was a classic example of not only, stick Father Christmas or stick a holly wreath, stick anything Christmassy around any product back in the 50s and 60s, and you'd be able to sell it. But it was also very much from a rational appeal point of view. It was saying these cigarettes taste nice. They don't scar the back of your throat. They're a much better taste than any of the other cigarettes. It's worth your while. If you're going to smoke, you may as well smoke these. These are the best cigarettes on the market to smoke. So that's a rational appeal. I'm not going to play you the John Lewis advert because I think more or less everyone has seen that, but there are lots of other adverts out at the same time as well, which are trying to make this emotional appeal, where they're trying to pull at our heartstrings and create images which make us feel either nostalgic or feel good towards our family or feel guilty. What I am going to do is show you a very brief Christmas appeal from one of the charities. And again, as soon as Christmas Day, Christmas lunch is over, you start to get these appeals turning up on your TV. If you're at home with your family this year and you're watching TV, anytime from about 3 o'clock onwards on Christmas Day, and especially on Boxing Day, you'll start to see lots of TV adverts very similar to the one I'm going to try and show you in a second. What they're actually saying is, you're having a good time, you've got money, you've got enough to feed yourself. There are lots of people across the world who can't. It's your moral obligation to get involved. So let's have a quick look at one of those.
This Christmas morning, 120,000 children will wake up homeless in Great Britain. Is it right that children like Jess, evicted from a home, should face a cold, frightening Christmas in a hostel? Is it right that little Jack should have to share a bathroom with strangers? Some nights he worries so much he wets the bed. And all Lucy wants for Christmas is a silent night. No child should be homeless, especially at this time of year. If you agree, then please help us find them a home. Text HOME to 70060 to give just £3 to shelter, or visit us online at shelter.org.uk/Jess. For 50 years, we've been helping families find a place they can call home. But we can't do it without your support. So please don't forget Britain's homeless children this Christmas. Text HOME to 70060 to give £3 to shelter.
Okay, so you can see from that clip, and I'm sure you've seen those kind of adverts, especially at Christmas time, that that's very much aimed at our sense of what's right and what's proper. And it's saying, is it right that these children should struggle in this way when you could actually do something about it? So I hope what you've seen is that there is more to putting an advert together, especially a Christmas advert, than just saying, what kinds of creative thing can we come up with? Let's just pump that out through the TV and social media. People will react. There's a number of things that a marketer needs to do. They need to think really carefully about what the message is actually, who the message is going to be targeted to. Then they need to know what their objectives are actually going to be. Then they need to decide on the vehicle that they're going to use, and they need to decide on the appeal, whether it's rational, emotional, or moral. And then they need to be creative, and they need to find something that cuts through that cluster, so that when we are getting bombarded with these thousands of commercial messages a day, we pay attention
to the one that they want us to pay attention to. It's a real work of art as well as a scientific endeavor that they engage in. Just the last thing to say is about selecting the message source, and the message's impact on the audience is affected by how we view the communicator. So often we'll use celebrities and athletes and entertainers to tell us how great a product is and how we should be buying it. You've got to be really careful that people do have strongly positive views of these individuals. And I'm sure you've seen lots of opportunities or lots of times when these things have gone wrong. When Tiger Woods was found to be having multiple affairs by his wife, and she tried to attack him with one of her own golf clubs, and that led to an arrest and publicity, and he lost thousands, millions in sponsorship deals. And the brands who had used him to front their campaigns all really struggled for a period of time. The big boys and girls, they got back on their feet, but it had a negative effect on their products and their brands. So it's really important that when a company decides who's going to give the message of their products and their campaigns, it's someone who they can trust and who we can trust. And if we move away from Christmas adverts just for a moment and just talk about adverts in general, you often see things like toothpaste and washing up powder and contact lenses and glasses, all actually told. We get told about their benefits by usually a man or a woman in a white coat. It makes them look as though they're a scientist or they're a dentist or they're a doctor, and they know what they're talking about, and we can trust the message that they're actually giving us. There's little of that goes on at Christmas. I mean, at Christmas, it tends to be the creative, emotional appeal. It tends to be something which, is fairly neutral and will go across a whole range of different people who we can actually target with our message at any one time. But the principles of what I've talked about remain for Christmas ads just as they do for the other types of adverts that I've touched on as well. So I hope it's been enjoyable and it's been informative. I hope you've learned something not only about Christmas adverts, but also about the theory that sits behind it. We teach a lot of marketing communications and marketing in general, along with business, economics and accountancy at Liverpool Hope Business School. If you're interested in finding out how you can come and do a degree with us, what the degree looks like or feels like, try and come along to one of our open days, or look me up on our website, Ian McKenna. I'm the head of the business school. There'll be an email address there if you want to come in and sit in on one of the students' classes to see how it feels. We'd be very happy to welcome you to Hope Park in Chilwell. So I wish you all the best for Christmas, and I hope that as your school career goes on, if you are going to go to university, that you make wise choices. Okay, my name's Ian McKenna. I'm the head of the business school, and I'd be very happy to hear from you again. Nice to meet everyone.